Although barely involved in the war, the Colombian Air Force had fascinating pre-war ties with both Germany and America, resulting in a truly unique history and a strong organization to be proud of. September 1916. The First World War had been raging for a little over 2 years. Although halfway across the world and not involved, the Colombian military was still alerted, as every month new, powerful and terrifying weapons of war were revealed. Still mainly rural, with stretches of the Andes Mountains to the west and Amazon jungle to the southeast side, the advantages of aviation were obvious and new designs made it practical and safe to use. After the 1916 Commission, in which a handful of officers went to France for flight training, the December 31st Law 126 of 1919 established the goal of creating military aviation and accompanying school for the Colombian Army. It was not until February 15, 1921 that it was formally activated, only to go bankrupt a year later. This is where an interesting turn of events began. German aviators faced an uncertain future after the 1919 Versailles Treaty and found a new opportunity in the Colombian efforts towards aviation. On December 5, 1919, the Sociedad Colombo-Alemana de Transporte Aéreo, or SCA-DTA, was formed. Also known as Deutsch-Kolumbianische Luftverkehrsgesellschaft in Germany, meaning Colombian-German Air Transport Society in English. It became the second established commercial airline in the world. Although civilian, it was a major influence on the future Air Force. It is likely that the German connection opened lines of communication, which resulted in a Swiss mission headed by Captain Henry Pilichodi to reopen the School of Military Aviation on November 8, 1924 in Madrid, Colombia. 4 Swiss Wild WT and 8 Wild X trainers heralded the first air parade on August 7, 1927, with the first combat aircraft being active a year later, one American Curtiss Falcon 01. The future Fuerza Aérea Colombiana, Colombian Air Force, or FAC, was finally a proper air force, although still an army branch. Operationally, nothing at all happened with the fledgling Air Force until September 1, 1932, when Peruvians at the southern tip of Colombia invaded the town of Leticia over a long-standing border dispute. The advantages of using aircraft to quickly reach the area and combat the invaders were obvious, but with only 4 new Curtiss CW-C-14R Osprey combat support aircraft and a Sol 01, their effectiveness was negligible. The Congress of Colombia acted quickly with large funding increases, authorizing the purchase of new aircraft, facilities, and hiring experienced pilots, many of them Germans and Colombians from SCA-DTA Airlines. 20 American Curtiss Falcon F-8F and 30 Curtiss Hawk II F-11C fighters were purchased, alongside more commercially oriented German aircraft. 4 Junkers F-13, 4 Junkers W-34, 3 Junkers K-43, 6 Junkers Ju-52-1M, 2 Dornier Merkur II, and 4 of the world-famous Dornier Val flying boat. Many of the transports were floatplane versions and could land on large rivers to deliver supplies and perform aerial reconnaissance. Meanwhile, the fighters carried air-to-ground attacks. The Peruvians did have combat aircraft as well, and one of its American Douglas O-38Ps was brought down and captured. But by then, the League of Nations had successfully negotiated a peace treaty, ending the conflict on May 24, 1933. The O-38P and crew returned, and Leticia was once again Colombian territory. The FAC lost 4 pilots in non-combat related accidents, one of them being of German nationality, and 4 planes. World War II created huge uncertainty for Colombia. Although allied with the US and receiving support from them, there was great pressure to expel the German nationals due to fears of insurgency. The Colombian government bravely resisted the pressure, but did enact some measures to eliminate potential German espionage. After December 7, 1941, Colombia was forced to deal with the semi-German SCA-DTA airline, merging it with the national airline SCAO, the future Avianca airline. Although Austrian industrialist Peter Baul von Bauer had already sold his controlling interest to Pan American Airlines to prevent any Nazi control. About this time, Colombia received modern American PT-17s and AT-6 trainers, although the latter could also be used for combat duty. Except for anti-submarine patrols, there were few wartime engagements. Soon after the war ended, the FAC became an independent organization. After the war, Colombia acquired notable amounts of surplus American equipment, including P-47 Thunderbolts and A-26 Invaders, starting a trend of acquiring American aircraft with a smattering from other countries. The first jets were Canadian-built Sabre Mark IV F-86, and a few low-cost surplus F-80s later. Despite tensions with neighbors, internal political upheavals and economic uncertainty, the FAC grew involved with and taken advantage of all the latest aerospace technologies. Its main combat missions are dealing with FARC guerrillas and narcotic traffickers. Colombia is highly protective of its airspace and routinely shoots down aircraft along drug routes not responding to radio commands. In combating insurgents, they use a number of aircraft, including 6 Basler BT-67s, a refurbished and heavily modified C-47 used as a counter-insurgency gunship, as well as their A-37 attacker. On the other extreme, a small, modified, home-built kit plane, the Lancair Legacy T-90 Kalima, is their primary trainer. A very interesting history indeed. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little documentary about the Colombian Air Force. If so, don't forget to leave a like rating on this video and subscribe to my channel. My name is MikeGoesBoom. Thanks for watching.